Hey everyone, you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I am your host, Andrew Davis. And before I introduce my guest, I would like to remind everyone you need to support and financially support what you love, whether it is this show, my guest's comic, or corporate media. I personally do not care as long as you're supporting what you love and what you want to see being made more of, because without money, this stuff does not get made. But enough about that, as I have with me comic creator Casey Allen. So welcome to the show.
Hey man, how's it going?
Now, I'm excited to have you on. Obviously, you got a very interesting book that I think is fully funded, and it is Bigfoot Knows Karate. And
Yes.
so you're in the middle of it. I think you're right at the middle point.
Yeah, pretty much like right in between. And it's one of those things where it's there's always you go through the dips and the ups and the downs, and the middle, man, it's like when you had to read like what is the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. There's like no wind. They're just like sitting in the middle of the ocean. I'm just waiting for a seagull to come because I'm gonna kill that mother. Yeah. um, it's
I know the feeling. I ran one in January, and first like 3 days, I started at like 12:01 on New Year's, which I thought was a great idea. I thought it was a cool concept. So 12:01, I launched January 1st. That was crazy, and I did like $200, and then I had nothing for like 2 weeks.
oh
And
man, yeah.
and it's the weird thing. And I didn't get attention until I started complaining and bitching about it, because like all these people were attacking me on my campaign, what I was doing. And people were like, "You're such a nice guy. Like, who the hell's attacking?" And then like legit like $400 came in, and then I barely got funded for what I was doing, but still got funded. But enough about me. That's a different discussion. I'm sure that sometime next year I'm gonna have another January incident, preferably in June with my next project. But enough about me again, because you are in the middle of funding Bigfoot Knows Karate, Chapter 2, Issue 2. And what's the basic premise of this for those who don't know what Bigfoot is?
The basic premise is there is a Bigfoot warrior, and he is taken from his isolated bucolic, wilderness, and pulled into a fight he wants nothing to do with. And so we had to be really cagey about the first issue. There was a big twist in it. Just the title alone, I mean, Bigfoot Knows Karate, that you automatically think, oh, this is just a punch 'em up. That's what this is. It's just a big dumb guy, and he fights a guy named Kung Fu Thulu, and it's just going to be a big, knockdown, drag out fight, which it was. But we also wanted to have a story in there. You can't just, if you want to tell a story in 5 parts, it can't just be an ass kicking from page to page. That'll get boring. No matter how good an ass kicking it is, it's gonna get boring eventually. So you either have to you switch it up and actually tell a decent story you want to get out, or you have to keep building and building and building, and eventually, like, I mean, issue 1, the bad guy, the villain, Kung Fu Thulu, was like 4 stories tall. What are we going to do in the next issue? Make a 5-story tall bad guy? Like, eventually that gets old. So basically at the end of issue 1, he gets his ass kicked, and he kicks the ass of the other guy. They're both incapacitated. And at the very last few pages, this dark, shadowy organization swoops in, scoops he and Kung Fu Thulu up, and takes them away. So issue 2 starts off with Bigfoot out of the woods. He's out of his element, and he is now in this dark, cold, metallic prison. And so how's he going to get out of this situation? That's, basically.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because there's a lot of stuff going on. Because obviously, he is very much a warrior, Bigfoot. He's trying to find peace between, his interaction with man, nature, himself. Obviously, he's trying to find, I think, internal peace to some degree as well.
Exactly, yeah.
And he's also somewhat struggling with what is real, what is not real, and dealing with stuff. And there's some other stuff we don't know going on with
Glad
him.
you picked up on that.
And it's a little trippy in the book, but I think it's meant to be. It's a little confusing, and I was like, hey, what's going on? Because I read the first issue. I'm like, oh, this is weird, and I'm not even too sure what's real, what's not real. I don't even know if the fight was really real and what it looked like, but that's not the point here. And then obviously he's dealing with that, and then, well, now for whatever reason, this shadow organization, this Merc group, as I like to call them, because they very much remind me of Blackwater, you know, special ops.
Oh yeah,
government organized.
You would know that, you old former G-man, you.
So now and what I picked up is that they incapacitated both of them, but they said leave his mind open because they want to tinker with it. And so it's very interesting. So what was that like? Because we now have, you know, this mythological creature, Bigfoot, Cthulhu, and this is also very much a well-known thing. But now they've both been taken, and they don't like each other. They want a rematch, I'm pretty sure, between each other. But now
there's gonna be a rematch for sure.
Now there's a third element in there, and they obviously have technology and they have their own intentions, and it creates a very interesting, I guess, backdrop, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do was to with issue 2, you know, you start off with this big, crazy, you know, very loud. In my head, when he talked, the Kung Fu Cthulhu, he sounded like the Ultimate Warrior. Hulk Hogan, you know, like just a big dumbass. I haven't watched wrestling in over 30 years. Maybe that was good, but somebody somewhere was like, yeah, he's doing that thing. He shouldn't do that thing. But anyway, yeah. So he sounds like that. He's just a big over the top villain. And so with issue 2, we wanted to have some good fights in there, which there's several fights throughout the issue, but we also have a lot more of the you kind of figure out a little bit about what that the shadowy mercenary organization is up to. We feed you little tiny bits and pieces. We're giving you a breadcrumb trail. And I mean, because we have this thing for 5 issues, we are going to get into a few more like cryptids and stuff like that. And they're not all like, you know, I don't know, a Krav Maga Mothman or whatever. It's all, you know, we're going to have a Mothman, but he doesn't necessarily practice like a martial art or whatever. I didn't want to do that. We thought that would be lame if every cryptid had like a different like discipline or whatever. But so yeah, our goal was really just to tell a fun story, and we're doing it over 5 parts. So issue 2 is going to be a blast. I can tell you a little bit about who we're going to be meeting. We're actually in the prison. There's going to be a splash page that shows pretty much all these different creatures, which is, believe it or not, Dan actually had a fun time drawing it. Dan Price is the co-creator and co-writer, and he does the art. And so he's going to be fighting as the big villain. We've already shown bits and pieces of him on the Instagram, so I guess it's okay to talk about it. There's a Minotaur that he's got to fight. His name's Astrid, or Asterion, and he's going to be fighting him, but there are a few other like crazy things going on, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, and let's even talk about this, because obviously Bigfoot gets taken into this prison. He's obviously beaten, tortured, fucked with. I mean,
for sure.
I think that's the nicest way how to put it, right?
Yeah,
He's taken out of his elements. He's disturbed. They're studying him, messing with his brain. They got a reason for it. Typically, they either want to hunt him and make him like a super hunt and have a good time with it and make him like a big game animal, or they want to use him as a weapon or something of that combination. And then now there's a whole issue where he, and I'm taking a leap of faith here, is sort of as an opportunity to escape, or he's going to try to escape. And now he has to figure out what he's going to do. And well, that's kind of where this story I think is going. And then there's going to be some fights, and there's obviously other creatures there. Some of them probably like Bigfoot, some of them don't. And then it becomes a big issue where they might pit them against each other, and you got a real kaiju fight about to happen. Which is playing around with it, and a lot of other stuff's going on with it, and there's just a lot of gears in motion.
Oh yeah. We wanted to make it. We wanted to throw a lot at people to keep the story going. We wanted it to make things. We didn't want a slow story. We wanted something to keep people occupied, and so yeah, there is a lot of plates in the air, and some of those are going to come crashing down in this issue, and we're going to be maybe hoisting a few more plates up in the air as well. But it's all in serving the story. One thing that has been a thing that I've had to learn how to do is, I have another title that I'm writing. I've gotten 2 issues of this, Voodoo Child, which is a book I did with an Englishman named Pete Woods. He's actually a Welshman. He lives in England. But anywho, yeah, Pete and I have this book, and I've just been taking care of the writing. So writing this Bigfoot Knows Karate with Dan Price, I've had to learn how to collaborate on a different level, because, I'll have an idea for something, and, Dan has an idea for something. And ultimately, Dan kind of created this character. And initially my role was just going to be as an editor. And I kept throwing in suggestions and going, well, maybe we should do this. Like the, Kung Fu Thulu was my idea in issue 1, the big dumb green guy. So eventually Dan came to me and was like, you want to just co-write this with me? And I was really reticent to do that because I didn't have experience with that. But if you want to learn how to do something, sometimes you just got to jump in with both feet, right?
Well, let's actually talk about this, because this is interesting. So comics collectively are collaboration in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Whether you're collaborating between a writer and an artist, or somebody else is brought into it, it's a collaborative medium. Unless you are the writer and the artist and you're doing it all yourself, and some people do it and some people don't. And obviously some people know how to write and draw and do it all, and some people don't. But what is that like when you're brought in as an editor, and then you have suggestions, but I would imagine you don't want to be the guy that sort of interjects yourself as the second writer when you were brought in as an editor and be disrespectful and overstep and step on somebody's toes as well, versus what you were brought in to do. And then even how you approach the topic, because I don't want somebody to be like, I'm editing your podcast, but now can I be your co-host?
Yeah.
It would be, if I paid you to be my editor and you have a question, and I used to have an editor for my other show, every once in a while, you'd say, hey man, do you want me to take this thing out? Because I noticed that you and him were having a big aside, very personal conversation. And he ran it by me, but he never ever said to me, can I be your co-host now? I think that would because it gets tricky. And so what was that like? Because I think that's something that happens sometimes. So, and then it also can blow up too, because you're stepping on somebody's baby. You know what I mean? Like if I wrote a book, I don't want my editor to be my writer unless I invite them in.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is trust, man. It's so with Dan, he joined a group that I help run called the Comic Jam. and we had each week we get writers and artists, and we pair them together to do one page. Everybody writes all the writers write one page, 6 panels tops, based on a theme that everyone votes on. And then at the end of the week, they turn in their scripts. I go into the Google Drive, and I start pairing those scripts up with the available artists. Well, we had a Steve Ditko tribute, and Dan and I worked on a Steve Ditko tribute, and I had a blast working with him. We even, from there, he was like, "Hey man, can I call you? You want to just talk?" And as a general rule, I do not talk on the phone. Like it's hard to want to talk on the phone for me, but Dan and I talk like nearly every day now, and we're sharing ideas about the comic. We're bullshitting back and forth, but it's a trust thing, man. It's all about trust. Anytime you collaborate with somebody on something, you have to have the idea in your head that like nobody wants to make a bad comic. And with Dan, when he asked me to help him co-write, I think he had a roadmap set up. I think he was concerned about being able to do everything and illustrate it. He's a great writer in and of himself. He's super talented at that. The thing that I did with issue 1 mostly was just kind of fill in gaps here and there. We both kick dialogue around. We'll both take a pass at the dialogue. Dan is like Bigfoot's internal internal monologue. That's almost 99.9% Dan. He's just he has that character down. He has that voice down. And with Kung Fu Thulu, I was super happy to write the dumbest lines ever. But it is trust, because sometimes when somebody reads something that you write and they go like, I don't think we should go in that direction, it's like, fuck you, man. I did awesome. But and we will go back and forth on stuff. Initially in issue 2, I wanted to have a really trippy opening scene, because in in issue 1 he goes into what we call the Unreal. And he kind of has like the chorus of skulls talking to him, telling him he's just a piece of shit. He'll never finish what he's doing. Which, I mean, everybody probably has a chorus of skulls following you around, telling you that you're awful. I know I do. It's really disturbing, but no. So I wanted to open up where he was in the Unreal, and it was just a really trippy segment. And Dan was like, maybe that might be going too hard into it. And I had to concede.
You can talk about that too, because this is one of the things that obviously, I've had people who are writing teams on, and obviously having a check to some degree is very helpful. And having an editor. And look, you've read comics, I've read comics in indie, and even for the big 2 or 3 or 4 at this point, where you're like, that editor should have checked, or that person didn't have an editor, and maybe the book needed room to breathe. I always go to the idea with tattoos and even interviewing, that sometimes you have to let something breathe, and you have to, give room and give space versus trying to jam every little thing in there, right? And so what is that like too, that you have, a co-writer checking you, not to be mean, but saying, maybe this is a little too much. Maybe we need to tone this down a little bit, and we can't, start off with that because it's going to throw the book off. Or maybe that'll be better for a splash page in the middle, because that's the other thing too. Or maybe we want to climb up the hill versus going into, shotgunning the entire book, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. So like the way I write, I tend to drag things out. And so having Dan kind of go like, hey man, maybe we should pick this up a little bit. Maybe we should uh that's helpful. And also just kind of um a thing that helped me reason out of my initial idea for the opening was we only have so much room in this book. Like we're doing 5 issues and we're trying to stick to, we're actually with this book, I think with issue 2, I think it's going to be like 36 pages. And that was, we tried to keep it at 30 and then it kept building and building and building. And finally we're just like, you know what? They deserve 36 pages. They'll get 36 pages of a badass book. This is all killer, no filler. We are, basically trying to give you your bang for your buck because everything in there was like, we go over it. We're like, can we cut this? Do we need to cut this? Does this serve the story? And if it doesn't serve the story, no matter how awesome it is, sometimes it just got to go, man. I'm really wrestling with an arc in issue 3 or starting in issue 3, going towards the end of the book, as to whether I want to keep it. And I think I'm gonna, but it's one of those things where like, can I accomplish this in a different way? Is this thing I'm writing going to take away from the main story?
Because let's even talk about that too, because obviously I'm purposely staying away from what's going on in issue 2 because I don't want to ruin what happens. And I didn't read it yet, so I don't want to ruin it. And I don't want to push it too hard on it. But even the idea of keeping it short, because when I was down living in DC, I actually studied abroad undergrad, and I had a professor in DC, and we had writing assignments. We had 3 writing assignments where we had to keep it under basically 2 pages.
Nice.
Assignment of like policy recommendations and a variety of other stuff. That's fun. I don't think people understand how many words you could put on 2 pages. 1,200 words. Characters. You have 1,200 characters to make an argument. And I could tell you for a fact that it changed the way I write, because now I write short. And it's actually very interesting when you can get your point across in 3 sentences and somebody at the end got their point across in 2 paragraphs and they got an A. I mean, it took me a little longer, but the professor, what he's trying to get us is that people in Congress don't have time to read. They don't have time to read this. They're dealing with 14 different things at the same time. So they need the bullet points. And so what is that like? Because I think it goes back to our, attention spans as people. I don't have time to read a 50 arc series. Nor do I want to. You know what I mean? It's like I want to watch something. I want to read something that is concise and that's not going to break my bank. And it's going to be not over in a flash, but it's going to be over relatively quickly, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. With this, we decided a 5-issue arc, and it's literally going to tell the full story that we want to tell. And we have another idea for another arc if we want to, if people are still interested in it. But we would feel like we were cheating people if we didn't have a definite end to, this arc on issue 5. And also we didn't want to cheat people by doing a nothing comic. We didn't want to have a comic that goes nowhere, where you're like, well, why did I get this? So, being mindful and respectful of, especially when you're in indie comics, like respectful of the people that are buying your stuff, knowing that you have people out there, like issue 1 is always, that there's going to be like your mom is going to buy an issue or something. And it's like, thanks, Mom. That's great. But eventually mom's gonna be like, all right, I'm done with this horse shit. And your friends are gonna be like, oh, you're still doing the comic thing. And then, other people that, aren't
Yeah,
into it and are
we're
only
gonna get
supporting
into
it for
this.
you because they love you. Those
We're
people
gonna
are
get
gonna be
into
like,
this.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
interesting. This is interesting. So obviously, I'm gonna be very, very polite when I say this, and I'm gonna ask you a question. Have you ever backed somebody's Kickstarter? Said, "Oh man, that concept seems really cool," and then you get it and you're disappointed.
Oh, I had one. I will not say names. I'm not gonna disrespect another creator.
Well, I'm not gonna go
I
say
had one.
names.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And for me, it's my friends and it's people who I like.
Oh, that's such
Where
a bummer.
they had a bad book. Okay, they had a bad book, right? They had a great book before that when their second book was not good. To be polite about it, I then gave their book a second issue, and so I tried 1 and 2 issues because maybe issue 1 was a slow burner and maybe issue 2 will correct, right? So I think I gave it a fair shot. I just think the concept was bad. I think that it wasn't fast enough.
Yeah.
But I don't think, but also I think for me, that's $40 that I could have gave to somebody
Dude, yeah.
else to get a book that I wanted.
Shit gets expensive.
Yeah. And so my whole thing is that it wasn't that I don't regret it, but I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. And
That makes a ton of sense.
and so my point is that when you're creating something, I don't want you to waste my time with it. Where I'll give a book if I know your 6 issues or 10 issues, and I know it's going to be that way. I'll give your book 1 or 2 issues. But after that, if you wasted my time, the likelihood of me being back is not there. And not to mention that if it's $20 a pop,
oh
when
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
$20 a pop, I'm like, okay, we've now entered a realm where this shit's expensive, and that's like Zenoscope variant prices for your cover B. And that's also what jaded me. So what is that like to be conscious of that? Because I feel that if you produce a bad product and you waste my time, and that your issue 1 is slow as hell, and it could have been told in 3 panels, the whole book.
Yeah.
You're disrespecting me as a fan, and also you're hurting your brand, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So with indie comics, like your product is your word. Your product is what you put out there. If you whiff it, nobody's going to take another chance on you. So you got to make sure that you come correct. You got to come out and do something good. You got to do something that people haven't really seen before, hopefully. So and we tried to do that. Another thing, if you want that tactile feel of the comic, we have that. You can buy it. Is we think it's a fairly easy buy-in. Shipping sucks always, but that's part of it. If you want the tactile feel of the comic, you can get it and get it for a good price. And then we have other different things available too, different variant covers and whatnot. But it's important to have a digital too, and at a low buy-in for that digital, because if you're not sure of it and you still want to support it, you should be able to read it. Digital, if you make it cheap enough, eventually somebody that's just curious will go like, oh, maybe next time I'll get the physical copy. And I think we've had that this time just by looking at the numbers and comparing them to last time. I think we actually had a digital guy from last time come back and buy issues 1 and 2 physical, which was pretty gratifying. I haven't looked at it in the past few days. There might be more. But yeah, making sure to respect your audience.
Because, and even to go further into that too, and look, I mean, I'm a big Zenoscope guy. And so Zenoscope will produce a 250 print run book by Paul Green on the cover, and they'll charge me $25 for that book. And then I look at an indie comic creator and you're charging me $20, and nothing against an indie comic creator,
Yeah,
but you're
you
nobody
have a name.
compared
Yeah.
to that. You have an artist who's good, your cover looks awesome, but you're charging me $20. Like, wait a second, we're not in proportion anymore. Where, and your book is, I don't know what your book is. And so if you had a cover that was $10 or even $12, that was your cover A. But when all your covers started at $20, I'm now also not so interested in being a backer, because that's a big commitment.
Yeah.
And I can't justify that price point. If you have an Ivan Tao cover, that's a little bit different, because I know how much Ivan Tao charges. I also understand what Ivan Tao brings to the table in your cover. You know what I mean? Like, there gets to a point where now I understand when, you bring in somebody and I understand their value. But if I don't know who's on the book, and I feel like that's a disrespect in a lot of ways, I think it's actually bad business, because I think you go into that, and once you go into that 20 price point, I mean, I look at all these top variants by all these top artists and all these store exclusives, and I'm like, I know what I'm getting over here, but what am I getting over here beyond the cover looks cool?
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem. And I think that even on digital, I think it's a problem too. I mean, I've seen people charge $15 for a 36-page digital book. I'm like, what the fuck?
That's kind of bullshit. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all.
Man, I mean, if you charge $10 for 36, I still think that's high. I really do.
Yeah. So a thing I ran into the other day, I was at my local comic shop. It was a comic from an indie creator. And I was like, oh, cool, a guy just like me. The cover looked great. I opened it up, and like the print, like you want to have a good looking product on the inside as well as the outside. The art didn't look great, and it was in black and white. I paid, I want to say $12 for it, for like a 20-page comic. And you want to put out something that looks good. And Dan's a graphic designer. Dan knows how to, in his day job, he works for a magazine. So he knows how to put together a book and make it look good. So when he first sent me like the proof of the issue 1 Bigfoot Knows Karate, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, holy shit, this looks great.
Yeah. I think that's a thing too. Or I think also the idea, and then I'll use Zenescope as an example. I know that they hire a variant artist, right? So Paul Green's a good example. I know the book is not going to look like the cover inside, but it's not going to look bad either. But I'm also aware.
Yeah.
So, like, for instance, I'm trying to think of somebody who did a great cover. In Sun Kumanaki did a great cover for Sam Johnson's Geek Girl. I know the inside of Geek Girl is not going to look like that cover, but I know that. And so that my expectation is not going to be that. But if I don't know who your artist is and they did a fantastic job, and then your book is like a level C book and not even like a B+ book, just to put this in perspective, I get disappointed also.
Yeah.
Or conversely, if the book is supposed to have misspellings in it, like
fine. Get an editor, get somebody to proofread, please.
So Christy Shin's book, Demon Bitch, right? Christy Shin can draw, no question about that. But it's supposed to be bad art and ugly art. That's the premise of the book, and it's brilliant. So if you read Demon Bitch, you know what you're getting.
Yeah, and like art can be respected in so many different ways and appreciated in so many different ways. It all doesn't have to look like, Marvel style or whatever. Not that there's really a bullpen style anymore, but conversely though, you don't want it to look like somebody jammed a pen up their ass and drew it that way.
No. The book looks like that. It looks like No. Let me explain.
I'm gonna have to check this book out. Oh my god,
it's brilliant. It's hilarious. It's making fun of a lot of things, and it takes a real skill to make it look bad. I don't know if
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense, right?
Oh, I totally get that.
It's unbelievably talented, and it's satirical. It's funny. It's a brilliant book, and it looks a certain way where it's meant to. But I guarantee you that people couldn't mimic it if they tried.
Yeah. It's entertaining. That's the whole point. Yeah. As long as it's
And
entertaining, who gives a
it's
shit?
making fun of a lot of things. It's making fun of society. You have characters in there that are making fun of things. It's like it's brilliant, and it's also light reading, but it makes you think, and it's supposed to upset you a little bit, and it's supposed to be offensive a little bit. It's supposed to get you to talk, and that's the
Yeah.
whole point of it. Where if you see it at a con, it's going to make you stop.
Nice.
But anyway, continue. Sorry, I just
Yeah.
think it's brilliant. Just when you said shoving like a crayon up your ass or up your ass, it looks like that, and I don't say that to be mean. It's meant to look like that, but you know what you're buying.
And just for the
I hate
record,
books when I don't know what I'm buying, and I'm expecting A and I get B.
yeah. For the record, I've never jammed a pin up my ass and drawn a comic.
We don't judge on this show. We don't judge.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, it's fine. However, I could imagine what that would look like. But yeah, you want to put out a good product. You want to, especially at that price point that I bought it at, man. Like, I got it and I was like, but
it made you think, and it made you say, did I really just buy this? And then let me ask you a follow-up question to that too, because I'm curious, because the way I felt when I bought my friend's book and it was bad, I'm like, am I doing him a disservice by buying this? Because he now has support, and maybe this thing, and I don't want to sound mean about it, I might get in trouble for saying this, but maybe somebody has a bad idea with a comic, and maybe somebody has to say, hey, look, you need to really rework this, and you really need to hit issue 2 a bit harder and modify and then swing out left a little bit more. And it's kind of like giving a drunk a drink, I feel a little bit sometimes. Do I really want to say you're doing a great job when it's a disaster? And it sounds mean. It sounds mean when you say it that way. But, from a business perspective, if you are having a business that's losing money every single month, somebody hopefully at some point is going to sit you down, or you're going to sit yourself down and say, I'm losing money every month. I got to fix this.
Yeah, I mean, I think with indie comics, there are a lot of hard lessons learned almost every campaign, and that's one of those things that if your idea sucks or you didn't follow through the way you needed to, you're gonna find out some way. Whether that means that people aren't interested in the campaign, or people don't come back for the story in the next issue. And yeah, sometimes people will go out of their way to tell you this sucked. And luckily that hasn't happened to me. I've had to give, just through the Comic Jam, doing stuff there, I've had to give some creators some creative or some criticism that was constructive. And you want to give them like a compliment sandwich, because I mean, we're not doing this because we think it's going to make us money, or, I would love to make like a ton of money off of this. Don't get me wrong. I want that yacht, but, if I didn't do this, I have, a basement full of music instruments. I would be playing that. I'd be drawing. I'd be doing something, because I have to create. I have to be doing something creative, because I am a beautiful flower and people need to see me grow. If I didn't have an audience, who gives a shit? It's something that I do for myself.
See, that's interesting, because I'm very different. I'm very different. I've been podcasting for a little under 10 years in some fashion or some other way, through 2 shows that are merging into one at some point. It's going to be an interesting way how I do that. I'm going to build a tokenized bridge. and I'm going to sell some cryptocurrency through it as well. But such a bad idea. Such a bad idea. No. I'm going to rebrand the first show into this show. But one of the things is that I've actually gained inside knowledge that affects my comic book selling and investing business, because when you're interviewing people, it allows me to spot trends quicker. And it's not even the idea that if I'm interviewing a wrestler, I'm interviewing a cosplayer, I'm interviewing a voice actor, I'm getting actually a much larger perspective of pop culture. And it actually allows me to spot trends and determine what is valuable. And it affects me in stocks. It affects me in a variety of other things. And so it's very interesting for me, because every interview that I do, it provides another element of, like, I guess, for me foreseeing something. And it's like, I don't know how to explain that, but it's made me not incredibly rich, but it's made me a better investor.
Well, one thing people have been really trending with right now is Bigfoot Knows Karate comics. So y'all get on that while the getting's good, because issue 2 is going to be on Kickstarter for like another 15 days.
So let's even go into that, because you mentioned something else too, where people obviously back campaigns because they like somebody. I ran mine in January, and people backed me for a lot of reasons. Some people needed media, some people liked me, some people felt they owed me for having them on the show a bunch of times, and it wasn't that expensive. And so obviously people, back people because they like them. People also back people. They say, look, this book's okay, but this is not your money maker. This is not, but you need to fund this book to get to the next level. And so some people back for that reason too. So what is that like too? Because if you're likable, it's the same reason why people who I shouldn't have access to, one coming on my show. It's because I'm likable. I got Bushwhackers on my show because I knew somebody, and then he liked me, and then that was set up because I'm a likable individual, and that we connected, and I appeared likable, and then I was on another show that I think is gonna, people are like, oh yeah, you're likable, Andrew, and that's something that's big. I feel too, and I feel like some people in comics are just not likable. It is. I feel like likability is almost like an inherent trait where you can learn it and you can become it, but some people are just likable people in general.
Yeah. I mean, you have to sell yourself when you're trying to sell something like indie comics. You have to get out there. One thing. Okay. So if I were to give you a constructive criticism about your campaigns,
oh, thank God, not about this show.
January. No.
I don't want constructive criticism yet.
So just a tip from what I've learned, like, after the holidays, people do not have money. Generally, they've overspent, so it's going to be hard for them to commit to something right in January. I've had success in February with the campaign. So just be mindful of when you're putting it out there. If it's around the holiday season.
No.
It's
the
gonna
whole thing with my campaign was that I just said, fuck it. And I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I was already funded due to sponsorship money. So anything from my campaign was gravy.
Yeah.
And so, and look, it was a little bit different. And I thought it was cool. I thought it said, hey, let me try something and let's see what happens. And I just went for it. And my whole thing was that I was like, cool, we're going to see what happens. And God help us, because it was supposed to happen in November, but things got messed up. And it would have screwed a bunch of other stuff. But again, if I'm to ever do it again, I would do it in October.
Yeah. Well, right now, like we're dealing with, there's so many good campaigns right now. Oh my God. So you got to kind of keep an eye out for who's putting out, and, because that, you're not in competition with other creators. It's not it's not like that.
Yeah.
Like it's not for me. Like we have a friend who has a book called Crit. He also has a campaign. We actually had a launch party together. We both funded completely within 20 minutes
So,
of that launch
let's
party.
actually talk about that because I want to challenge a little bit on that. And here's what I want to challenge. I don't think you're in direct competition with people, right? But I do think that there's a finite amount of money.
Oh,
And
there is a yeah. Yeah, you didn't let me get my second point.
oh,
You
okay,
are in
sorry.
competition. Yeah, yeah. You are not in competition with other books, other creators. You are, trying to get their money though. You're trying to get fund, and there's only so many people, or only so much money that goes around, especially with indie comics. Um,
I'm going to throw something else out there too. Right now, you run podcasts or you participate in a bunch of that. You're competing against everything too. So this show competes against Netflix. This show competes against the NFL. This
oh
show
yeah,
competes against everything because there's only so much time in a day. So even tabling money, tabling time, that's the biggest thing where I don't feel like I'm competing with your show. You know what I mean? Where I don't think it's a direct head-to-head battle, but I'm competing where somebody sits and listens to this show or sees this show. What it is that they're not, watching Monday Night Football or Monday Night Raw, or they're
yeah,
not watching NXT, or they're not doing something else. And so it's really where, again, that's why I try to put out the best product I could put out. That's why it's on replay, because I get that, maybe somebody is not going to be able to catch it at the time that it's airing live, but they might want to see it, or they might want to see a micro clip of something later
yeah,
on. And so, that's why I'm challenging a little bit, where I'm saying, I don't think if your book is different. And that's the other thing too. If 30 people have a zombie book, I think those books are going more or less head to head. But if you
yeah.
have a zombie book and I have a romance book, we're not going head to head.
Yeah, I get that. It's funny. After we came out with issue 1, we started realizing like, oh, there are other people with Bigfoot books. And luckily, none of them were like ours. And when their campaigns went up, we were like, hey, support this guy. This guy's doing a Bigfoot book. And everybody, we haven't had had one creator be shitty, and I don't like that person anyway, so it didn't fucking bother me. So
Hey, you can name him if you want.
yeah, I'm not gonna. He doesn't need my help to get his name out there. But there's I've never had anybody be negative outside of like that one circumstance, and it was just such a dumb thing that I was just like, if this guy, like, he's a fucking loser. So
This is interesting. So even to go into that, I've had some bad interactions with people. There are only 3 people who are banned from my show. I've been doing this for almost 9 years, and I've had probably around 550 guests. And 3 people have gotten themselves banned.
oh
Which,
wow.
you have to go really far,
Yeah.
because it's no secret what I am. I'm a free speech advocate. Everything is fair game. People who have issues with, that I'm not happy with, aren't banned from this show. You have to really come into my territory, and you have to come in hard at me, and you have to do something that you shouldn't do to me. And not to go too far into it, but that's an issue. To get banned, you have to really push, and you have to want to get banned on my show, is the point. But beyond that, I've had some rough interactions with people in comics, but I think that those people sort of take care of themselves.
Yeah. Man,
It's not that hard to know who's a good actor and a bad actor anymore.
I've had interviews where I was kind of worried about some older crotchety, like, comic guys, and every time I've been worried about them, they were super cool. I've only had one guy with Spoiler Country that came in. He was a young guy that thought he was hot shit. He was a Instagram personality. I think he has like a TikTok or whatever, which I don't give a shit about. And he was just annoying. And we ended up not airing his show because he said a racial slur. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. We're not going to, I don't want to put your name out there because you are, you're a fucking moron. So it was one of those things that he wanted controversy to build his name. And like, if with your show, this is your show, you decide what gets put on air and how it's presented. And if somebody starts coming on your show and saying just reprehensible things, like it or not, you're kind of representing what that person says on your show. So,
I mean, look, I've had plenty of people who are controversial on my show.
Yeah, and controversy is fine, but like, just I don't want to tacitly give somebody a platform to say some bullshit that could then be tied to me, because I'm a creator too, and I don't want anybody coming and going like, oh, Casey is an anti-Semite or something like that because on his show so-and-so said something. And so, yeah, I'm not, yeah.
It's so weird.
It was Kanye. Kanye is not coming on Spoiler Country anymore. Fuck that guy.
so it's weird because I've been called a lot of things, and everything that I've been called, I am not. And it's odd. And when these people have called me things, you know, because I believe the answer to 90% of problems is capitalism. I really do. And so I believe if you don't like the way something is operating, you should build it or not support it with your money. It's very simple. It's very simple to me.
Vote with your wallet.
You vote with your wallet. And I said that on an issue, and people went after me. And I'm like, wait a second. So you don't like a certain brand that's doing something? Why don't you build a competitor? Why don't you do something else? You don't like a certain comic or a creator? Why don't you go and take their concept and do it better? If you don't like somebody and the way they run their business, why don't you run a business? And why don't you try to do a better job than they are? And that's been always my answer. And then I get called all these names. I'm like, okay. But the funny thing is that my audience doesn't care because they know it's not true. And even people who come up to me and are like, I was a little worried about you. And they're like, you're a decent human being. Like, and that's why my campaign got funded. Because everything that people say about me, they look at who it's coming from. They look at me and all this stuff. So there you go.
Yeah, bring that, to full circle is until you get your name out there, until you can prove your worth with your story, people are going to support your early stuff just because, Andrew's a good guy. I like Andrew. So don't be a dickhead. And it's not because in hopes of, if I'm not a dick, people will, support me. No, don't be a dick because you don't want to be a dick and you want to be a good person. I don't think that would be an issue with you at all anyway, but just putting that out there.
Yeah, no. It's weird because also a lot of stuff for me and a lot of ways I get interviews with certain people is I was supporting a lot of wrestlers right when they had no followers and I was tweeting out all their stuff. And then fast forward, they become big. And they're like, yo, man, why didn't we do an interview sooner? Like, I've had wrestlers say that to me. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that I could ask you. But it was.
You got to shoot your shot sometimes, man. Yeah, for sure.
But it's very interesting in that regard, too, where I just think that, that's the thing. And I also think that people look at the library and they're like, oh, snap. Like, you actually have really good guests and you've done things that other people haven't done. And that I have all these people on my show because I consistently prove that my show's good and I'm not an asshole. Yeah. Well, every once in a while, probably 2 times a year, I'm an asshole. Probably live where I'm just in a bad mood and people know not to push and people get that I'm having a rough day or I'm not there. Something's going on. And if I'm in a really bad mood, I just won't show up. Like I think maybe like 6 months ago, I just didn't show up to an interview. And then I apologized to the guy. I said, man, I was in a bad mood. I wasn't going to be a good guest. Yeah. I openly just said to him privately, I said, man, I was in a bad mood and I was going to be a disaster on your show. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's better that I don't be a disaster and cancel than show up and not be good.
sometimes, man, as a podcaster, when somebody cancels, you're just like I have an hour to do something else now. I can watch a Netflix, especially being a parent. I have 2 kids, so being a parent, which I'm about to have to put them to bed in a minute. Like, you know, you can't watch Netflix when you have 2 kids that are all up in your shit all the time. You can watch a Netflix. Like, you will have time to like watch a little bit of something. But you know, being able to just like binge like you used to before when things were
Oh,
carefree.
wow.
No, man.
I'm the opposite, man. I'm the opposite. When somebody cancels on me, I'm just like, oh, it just kills me.
Oh,
But
for real. Like,
I get excited. I get so pumped up. I'm like, I'm speaking to somebody cool, and then I'm like, you think they don't even cancel? They don't show up.
I feel that way before I'm interviewed. I'm like getting psyched up, thinking about it. I'm like, gotta hit those points. What are my points? What are my points? What are we talking about? You know, the campaign has 16 days to go. We're completely funded. We're already at our stretch goals.
Yeah, so
You know,
let's talk about that because I don't want to keep you from putting your kids to sleep in like a few minutes. But obviously, there's a lot of stuff out there that right here is one of the covers.
yeah, that is that cover is by Jevin Loop. He is an amazing guy. It features 2 new characters on the bottom left. That is Chupacabra the shotgun, and up top in blue is Thermonucleodon. And there's an interesting story with them, and the guy on the bottom, there's going to be an interesting arc with him later on throughout the book. It's going to tie into the larger story. There's going to be a very intricate like 2-piece cover. Can you flip to that? That right there is by Adam Caswell. Adam Caswell sent in a piece of fan art for issue 1, which we then turned into an alt cover. That is a wraparound cover for issue 2. And we're also going to be doing a like a full size standalone one shot comic, and it's going to be his interior art. So, and then we have, yeah, that's by Dan Price, the artist. And then if you keep going, there's a variant by Zip Allegria. That right there, that one, I saw him draw that live on Instagram. Is fan-freaking-tastic. He is a super talented artist. And then we have a limited edition red foil comic by Louise Thomas. There are only 25 copies available. And that is Draw, Erase, Repeat is his Instagram. He's fan-freaking-tastic artist. So we're really like throwing out some cool cover alternate, things like that. And then if you want to catch up, we have issues 1 and 2. We have it so you can get the first issue. If you want to just do the digitals, you can do the digitals. That's fine. We want you to read this comic. We want you to enjoy this comic, and we want you to come back for more. So check us out. Bigfoot Knows Karate, Born Under a Bad Sign, and it's chapter 2. My name is Casey Allen. Robots Eat Guitar on Instagram and Twitter. I just yell at politicians on Twitter, so maybe don't follow me there. And I just basically look at who got fat in high school on Instagram and occasionally post pictures of either my kids and my beautiful wife, or my comic that I'm putting out that is also beautiful. So, but in different ways. So,
yeah. And then I'm just going to quickly say that you have to support indie. And what that means is
hell yeah,
you have to back Kickstarters when they're live. You have to buy comics at cons. You have to share out that you're buying it. You have to actually follow people on social media. It makes a huge difference. You have to comment on their social media, because without your money and without your commenting and without your follows, this stuff doesn't get made.
Nobody hears about it. Exactly.
So I recommend people do that and share out that you're doing it. And remember, following somebody on social media, it doesn't cost you a penny. It doesn't cost you a penny, and so you have to do that, and it makes a huge difference. And then quickly about me, obviously all my social media is down below. It's Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's on YouTube, Pop Anime Comics, so you can check that out. I got a boatload of interviews that you can watch. You can also join my group, Indie Comic Connect, on Facebook if you're comics or you're an interviewer. It's a group that connects. It's free to join. Just answer the questions. They're there for a reason. And then on top of all that, obviously, I have a comic class coming out, comic book investing. It's going to be $40 on Udemy, 18 to 22 hours. Look out for it. More details will be up on my Facebook, social media, all that fun stuff. And there's going to be a bunch of promo codes that are going to get you way cheaper because I actually want people to be educated in this space. And if you so choose, you could buy me a coffee. Definitely a good way how to support me. It's not necessary, everybody, but if you like what you see and you want to support podcasts and indie media and all sorts of fun stuff in that regard, that's something to pay attention to. And I do have another show that is going to be launched soon called The Question. And we're going to be talking about a lot of questions in comics and things of that nature. One question probably once a month. And it's going to be a fun one, sort of a panel show, and having an open, honest discussion about all this stuff and maybe provide insight into all of that. So I appreciate everybody watching. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Dudes, ladies, gents, people, everybody, Bigfoot Knows Karate. You want to read this book. Meet us on our Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook. Go to the Kickstarter, Bigfoot Knows Karate. You can read issue 1 for free on there's a global comics website that is out there. So if you want to look that up and find it, you can read it for free. But do please support us. Issue 2. You can get issue 1, and support your indie comics, people. Be kind to each other. Be nice to old people. And pet dogs when you can, because they're great.
Well, I think that is a perfect place to end, and that is a wrap.